Last night, the New York Mets were embarrassed on national television after losing to the Los Angeles Dodgers 14-4. Now, this was a game that the New York Mets could have played much better. This game could have been a lot closer. Not saying they would have won the game, but they would have not been straight out embarrassed by the Dodgers. This really capped off a disappointing weekend for the Mets. It was a big weekend after their sweep against the Nationals, trying to show that they could compete against the reigning champions. Went to extra innings in the first couple of games, or at least they're competing. But then what we saw Sunday night was indicative of what we've seen all season long and what could ultimately determine the fate of the Mets' 2021 season. The main problem the Mets had last night, like they've had all year, has been hitting with runners in scoring position, hitting with runners on base. The Dodgers made a ton of errors in the field, whether it was throwing to the wrong base or just not making plays. The Mets had countless opportunities and squandered all of them. All their runs were ground balls or sacrifice flies or wild pitches. The Mets are about to begin a huge stretch of games going to the West Coast, facing the San Francisco Giants and the Los Angeles Dodgers yet again. This is going to be the make or break for the Mets, as they were in first place for a majority of the season. The Mets lost first place and keep falling behind and have not shown any signs of improvement, particularly on offense. So that is why the New York Mets need to make a big time change. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the change that the New York Mets could make. Not saying it's going to solve it, but there are some things the Mets could do to definitely help their offense be much more successful. That change is to move on from Luis Rojas right now. If you enjoyed this video talking about the Mets struggles and some solutions as to how they could improve, make sure to leave a like. Comment down below, what are your thoughts on Luis Rojas, the way he has managed this team, and the way the New York Mets are playing, and what other big changes could they make to save this season and not let it slip away? And if this is your first time watching or really want to help grow the channel, help me out, you can always subscribe. It is greatly appreciated. After the disappointing 60-game season for the New York Mets, a lot of Mets fans were like, it was a short season, we'll give Luis Rojas another chance. We've given him a chance, and I have not been impressed with what I have seen. The decision that Luis Rojas made last night with Carlos Carrasco, taking him out early and having him bunt in his last plate appearance, was indicative of the way Luis Rojas has managed all season. The New York Mets play a scared, not to lose mentality. They don't take any chances. They don't take any risks. They don't try to make something happen and put pressure on the other team. If your plan was to take Carlos Carrasco out anyway, you have to pinch hit there. Go to Travis Blankenhorn. Go to Kevin Pillar. Go to anybody. Not saying they're going to hit a 3-run homer, but at least show some fight. At least show that you are trying to get back into the game. Luis Rojas' excuse was, oh, well, we had a short bench, so I didn't want to burn a bench player. Well, his brilliant managing left Kevin Pillar on the bench. He never batted, and neither did Tomas Nido. So he saved those bench bats to have Kevin Pillar and Brandon Drury pitch anyway. And what really told me all I needed to know about Luis Rojas was the play against the Philadelphia Phillies with Marcus Stroman and the bases loaded. When Luis Rojas told Stroman to keep the bat on his shoulders and strike out with the bases loaded and nobody out, that tells you all you need to know about Rojas' mentality. He doesn't want to take any chances. He wants to play conservative. And it is clear that this conservative mentality has not worked. The New York Mets offense has been struggling all season long, and they don't try to do anything about it. They don't try to steal bases. They don't send runners. How many times have New York Mets, when they actually do get a hit with a runner on base, they leave the guy at third? They don't want to send him and risk making out at home plate. Instead, the Mets strike out on a pitch way out of the strike zone, or they take strike 3 looking. That play with Stroman could have gone much differently. If you have Marcus Stroman maybe laid out a bunt, who knows? Maybe he gets a bunt hit, like the way he did in his last start against the Washington Nationals. In that same game against the Philadelphia Phillies, Kyle Gibson got an RBI single, which ended up being the deciding factor in the game. And that was a massive series for the New York Mets, going up against the Philadelphia Phillies, the team that was right behind you at the time. And then you play scared, don't take any chances, you don't want to hit into a double play, but then Brandon Nimmo hits into a double play the very next batter. If Stroman hit into a double play, at least you would have scored a run. And Rojas continues to do this. In the series against the Los Angeles Dodgers, late in the game, Mets have a couple runners on, Tomas Nido at the plate, and he has Tomas Nido trying to bunt. Nido was unsuccessful in the bunt attempt because position players don't sacrifice bunt anymore. It's not something they practice. They don't know how to do it. So again, Rojas, afraid of Tomas Nido hitting into a double play, he didn't want to take a chance hands of, who knows, maybe Tomas Neal gets a hit and drives in those runners and helps you win the game. And this is something that happens constantly, week in and week out. Rojas' mentality of playing scared, not playing to win, being the player's best friend, not holding them accountable. When you lose 14-4 and you have two position players pitch in the same inning on national television, that should be a wake-up call to you to tell your team, hey guys, this performance that we had on Sunday Night Baseball for the whole world to watch was unacceptable. But that's not what Rojas does. Rojas, it doesn't seem to bother him. He doesn't get on the players for a very poor performance. He just says, it's okay, guys. I love you. Let's go on to the next one. It is clear that this lovey-dovey best friend stuff is not working. The manager's job should not be to be the player's best friend. The manager's job should be to get the most out of the players and win some games. And the Mets' struggles on offense have a lot to do with their approach. There are so many times, like Pete Alonso's at bat against Max Scherzer last night, Alonso is a low breaking ball hitter, and he takes a low breaking ball for strike 3 called, not even swinging at it. Then on the flip side, you have a guy like Dom Smith who has a couple runners on base in the first inning, chasing a pitch down in the dirt and hits a routine pop-up. And the Mets are just making other mistakes strategy-wise, where they shift more than any other team in the league, but they pitch away from the shift, so the hitter takes the ball the other way, actually uses the opposite field, something the Mets don't do. But if you're going to shift, you have to pitch towards the shift to make the most out of it. Michael Conforto has struggled all year offensively, and one of the main reasons that, even though the analytics say Conforto's playing great, he's hitting the ball really hard, but it's right at a glove because they shift Michael Conforto and they pitch towards the shift. Well, if that third base side is wide open, why don't you tell Michael Conforto to drop a bunt down the third base line, get a free hit, and make the defense make a change? If Michael Conforto is successful enough times, the defense will have to go away from the shift, and then you can let Michael Conforto pull those hard line drives and actually get hits from it and not line outs. When these other teams go into a game, they have a strategy, whether it's in a book or whether it's on their computer. They have a scouting report on every single player on your team. The scouting report on James McCann says throw him outside, he's going to chase. And you want to say, oh, Rojas can't go into the batter's box, he can't become James McCann and get hits. But he could tell James McCann, why don't you lay off the outside pitch? Why don't you take it till a strike? Why don't you take it till 2 strikes? When you see a pitch on the outside corner, let it go. McCann has been caught chasing constantly. He's always swinging at the outside pitch, and teams know that, so they keep exploiting it. The same goes for Javi Baez. When he is at a hitter's count, a 2-0 count, a 3-0 count, a 3-1 count, everybody knows that Javi Baez is swinging. That's what the scouting report says, and we know he's going to swing. So as the manager, it is your job to be the guy in charge, make an adjustment, and tell Baez, Javi, when you're in a hitter's count, don't swing. The scouting report is there, not going to give you a pitch to hit. And there are other things you could do just to make a team uncomfortable. Steal bases more often, at least try. Send Nimmo, send VR, send everybody. I don't care who it is. You have to make the other team think about something else. If you could throw a pitcher's game slightly off when they're pitching to Pete Alonso, have Brandon Nimmo try to steal a base, and then they hang a breaking ball, it becomes a 2-run homer. But when they're allowed to just focus on Pete Alonso, because they don't have to worry about Brandon Nimmo running, they don't have to worry about anybody else trying to steal a base, it makes it so much easier for the pitcher. And do a hit and run. Try to score from second on a hit into right field. And teams, they struggle so much now. If you watch other teams, they send their runners. Hitting the cutoff man is a lost art to some of these teams. They overthrow the cutoff man. They throw to the wrong base. It takes a lot for a relay to go right in today's modern day of baseball, which is worth sending a runner, especially when your offense is struggling. If you know the hits are rare when you got runners on, you got to send that guy. And no, Luis Rojas is not the third base coach, but again, you're the manager. You're in charge of the team. You can tell Gary DiSarcina, send some of these runners when they're coming around third base. And pitch inside a little bit. Make the other team uncomfortable. Make them think about something else. Don't just give them pitches that they can get their hands extended. If you back them off the plate a little bit, at least they have something else to think about, something else to consider, which makes it harder for them to be looking for a certain pitch. And stop getting caught up on lefty-righty matchups. If a left-hander is on the mound and you think that Albert Almora is a better option over Jeff McNeil, then you need to be fired on the spot, because regardless of lefty-righty, Jeff McNeil is a 100% better hitter than Albert Almora Jr. Now, how much would firing Luis Rojas help the Mets? That is unclear, but Steve Cohen needs to send a message to these players that the play has been unacceptable, because Luis Rojas is not getting on these players. He is perfectly okay with this mediocrity that we are seeing on a nightly basis. But if you send the message to the players that if you don't perform, you will go, it might help them step their game up and really take it serious and get things done. And you could say, oh, well, the Mets have had injuries. Oh, well, the Mets have had bad weather. That is true. But you cannot tell me that Brandon Nimmo and Michael Conforto, Dom Smith, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, J.D. Davis, Chase McCann, all of these hitters are actually this bad. Too many of these guys have been successful in the past for them to all of a sudden just all be bad players now. And it is such a coincidence that the games that Luis Rojas was suspended, the game against Pittsburgh and the game against Cincinnati, were the Mets' two best offensive games of the season. Now, could that have been a coincidence? Maybe. But it is clear that Luis Rojas is not helping this offense. He is not making any adjustments. He's not trying to change anything up. He's playing scared. Now, will Dave Giles be Mr. Aggressive and be throwing inside and sending runners first to third? No. But again, something needs to be done because the way this team is playing right now, how could you have any confidence they're going to do well on this West Coast swing? So something needs to be done. A major change needs to be made for the New York Mets to wake up, get their act together, and become a first-place team in the National League East Division again. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I know they're not going to fire Luis Rojas, but I'm just giving you some suggestions of what this team could do to improve and just showing you and how badly Luis Rojas has managed this season. Until the next one, be safe, be smarter than the Mets, be healthier than the Mets, and have a good one, everyone. Let's go Mets. Figure it out.